So what I was asked to do is to give you, the history of how I got where I am right now, and go through the various stages. So right now I'm at Penn State, at the medical school of Penn State, which is in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And I'm not going to talk about science, but just to put it out there, I am a cell biologist. So my interest is in how molecules regulate signaling in the cell. In particular, we are interested in DNA and DNA replication. And while we do basic science, we are at the medical school, so we do our science in the context of cancer. So what goes wrong with these molecules, and particularly with DNA in cancer. So why did I choose to major in biochemistry? When I was in high school, I liked two things, computer science and genetics. I realized early on that I'm not smart enough to do computer science. And you need a lot of physics, you need to understand physics in order to be able, and mathematics in order to be able to do computer science. And I didn't like those things. So I got stuck with genetics. And for that, you need to know chemistry and biology. I like biology and I was pretty good at chemistry. So I thought, that's the genetics. I liked it, but in my home country at that time, and even now, there's really no major research program going on in this field. So one could do, once you graduated with that major, there weren't too many things you could do. I mean, you could do high school teaching, which I never really found too inspiring, or you could do, work, for example, for a pharma company or some sort of chemistry production facility, so where there's no real research, but you work in production. And again, that wasn't really something I had in mind when I decided I want to pursue genetics. So I wanted to do a PhD, and I had to move outside of my country to do that. So I became focused in my last year to identify some PhD programs that could satisfy my genetics curiosity and basically do research. I remember I interviewing in Germany, in Italy, in France. There were not too many things that these various labs had in common. The only thing that had in common was that they were publishing high impact papers. And so, if I had the most important advice I can give you is try to go to labs that publish high impact papers. That's going to open all the possibilities for you.
Was language a concern? Did you
Yeah, so language was never a concern for me, but I try not to make it a concern. So obviously all these countries speak different languages, right? And the only language, I spoke my native language, Romanian, and I spoke some English. I didn't speak any of the local languages. So when I send my applications, I send them in English. So I figured if they can read them, then I'll probably be able to interact with them. And then they will realize I don't speak their language. So if I send something in English, they should understand that I want to communicate in English and not in some other language. And if they have a problem with this, they shouldn't get back to me, And I think I got 3 interviews out of 40 applications, so probably a big part of it was that. So I decided to go to Germany, and I got into this lab at the Max Planck Institute for Biochemistry in Munich, in a suburb of Munich, which is a large city in southern Germany. Right, so then, and the other thing is, it's always good to write reviews. So when you're at the end of your graduate studies, you probably know much more on that field than anybody in the world. You should know much more than your PI because you've been the one working on all that, right? So when I was writing my thesis, I realized that I could actually, that I had all this, I mean, I read hundreds of papers, you know. So I said, you know, why not spin this into some sort of publication, because I'm writing it anyway. And I decided to write a review, so to add some more material in there and write a review. And you know, we were very lucky to be able to publish a review in Cell, but it doesn't have to be Cell. I think any kind of publication that you can put the review in, it's really, really useful. You have basically a PubMed publication for free. And you also increase your name in the field. I mean, you provide some visibility for your name in the field. So now when my first student graduated, I asked her to write a review because, again, it's something that once you write your thesis anyway, so you should be able to put it in a review publication. Okay, so then get back to the world. So, you know, I was here, my PI was kicking me out of the lab. What do I do next? Again, you have a PhD, you can think of going into industry or some other, you know, many people in my lab went to patent law or things like that. So, but I was still excited about doing science. So I was excited about working at the bench, about discovering new things. So I wanted to go to do a postdoc. I decided I wanted to at least explore the possibility of the opportunity for a postdoc. So the question is what, you know, where to go for your postdoc. So I ended up going to so I crossed the ocean and I ended up in Boston. So I ended up as a postdoc at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, which is the cancer hospital of Harvard Medical School. But you know, why did I decide to go there, or you know, why there and not some other place, or in general, what was I looking for when I was choosing my postdoc lab? So, and this is really my take on it. So I'm sure that everybody has maybe different things. But this was how I decided. So I thought the most important thing is that the host lab should have funding, which you really cannot tell unless you're really in the lab. But there are ways to do it. So for example, if you're interested in the lab, look up their publications, the recent publications, and see if there are knowledge grants, especially NIH grants if they're knowledge grants. Or when you go to interview, you know, talk to the current people, to the current postdocs in the lab, and ask them whether, if they need something for their research, will the PI purchase those things, or will they tell them, no, I don't have money for that. So I really wanted to go to a rich lab, because that at least I knew that I'd be able to buy things and do, you know, weird stuff with those things. Then the projects are really, really important. So you need to find a project that excites you, that you want to go to work and, you know, discover things. But again, they should also be publishable in high-impact journals, because not all projects they may excite you, but they also need to excite the general public, or I should say the grant reviewers and journal editors and, you know, general science world. So make sure that the lab does publish in high impact journal, because that means that their work is hot in the field. I also wanted to go to a lab where the PI is a leader in the field, because it makes things much easier. It makes it much easier, you know, to publish high impact papers, to you know, to actually their letters will matter more if they're well known in the field, their reference letters. So that was a consideration for me as well. And also whether they have a good track record of placing postdocs into, you know, whatever you want to do afterwards, being academia or industry. And by that time, I figured out I want to stay in academia. So I traced his postdocs, whether they are now, so first author papers of earlier, you know, papers from the lab. I figured out whether they have their own lab by now or not. And then you want to also choose the institution wisely. So I wanted to go to a place where there is good support for postdocs, where they have postdoctoral programs, where they encourage postdocs to find jobs later on. So most institutions do that, but not all of them. And also whether there is an environment where you actually get to learn about science outside of your field. So, Harvard was great for that because almost every day there were talks by major people in different other fields of biomedical sciences. So I could actually randomly go to a talk and learn about, neurobiology or something else that I had no idea about. And it was really inspiring for me. But of course then also super important is whether you see yourself working in the lab with those colleagues for the next 5 years, day and night. So some labs are great on paper, but you feel no connection, or you feel the opposite connection than what you want to feel when you talk to the people in the lab and to the PI. So, but another important thing about choosing what you should do when you go to get the postdoc is you should try to get a postdoctoral fellowship. That really eases your life because you're not dependent on funding from the lab any longer. So I was lucky to get the postdoctoral fellowship from Europe, but there are many opportunities. NIH, for example, has lots of postdoctoral fellowship types of grants. So you should really talk to your advisor, about this early on and try to get the postdoctoral fellowship. What do I do next? Again, my fellowship was ending, my professor was kicking me out of the lab. So then the whole world is yours, right? What do you do? I was in Boston and I decided that I wanted to set up my own lab to continue working on this. And I became independent basically. So in the last few years of my postdoc, my PI kind of let me do whatever I want. And I really started enjoying that. So I had the hard time figuring out how I could actually go, for example, to a company to do what I'm told to do. So I said, okay, why don't I at least try to get some jobs in academia? So I started applying, and I think people told me, you really need to apply to, so the success rate, or the rate of getting interviews, so the first thing that you want to do is get interviews. And people said the success rate for interviews is around 10%. So if you want 5 interviews, you need to apply to 50 places, which is what I did. Or what did I look for when, after I got these interviews, I got a few job offers, so why there? So one of the most important thing is the startup fund. So when you start your own lab, you obviously need money to buy equipment, buy reagents, get your research program going, and hire people. So that's basically a dollar figure that you have to really negotiate and pull as high as possible. But in many cases, startup funds come with restrictions. So you have to make sure that you understand exactly the fine print. So what those money are, for how long can you use them, what can you use them for, and so on. It's also important, the institutional support, things like core facilities, because you cannot really, if you need a $2 million equipment, you cannot really buy it from your own funds. So you have to make sure that it exists and the institution has it and you can use it. Is there any support for the students or the postdocs, like training grants or other forms? And then, what's really your position? I mean, we normally call the assistant professor, but what does that mean really? So what do you need to do? Do you need to teach? What kind of campus is there? I mean, I'm in a medical school. We don't have undergrad. If I were at University Park, I'd have to teach undergrad students. So it's important to know ahead of time what kind of setup is there and what you need to do in terms of teaching. This is important as well. Many institutions don't have tenure anymore, so but still they have promotion systems. So what, how do you grow in that institution? What are the conditions for promotion? And then, you're going to be in an institution. You'll have to interact with your colleagues. You'll have to collaborate with them. So you have to make sure that you belong there. So what kind of research do your colleagues do? Can you collaborate with them? Can they attract grants? I mean, you're not an island. You depend on other people around you. So if they do well, you're going to do well. So you want to make sure that they do well. And, are they happy? I hope I gave you some useful information. And, please feel free to ask me any questions about anything career-wise or science.